Greetings, Stackers. Welcome back to my channel, Stacking Stupid. Brian Anderson here, your host. Once again, sponsored by the Portal Comics and Gaming. Today I wanted to right after the election, take a moment and talk about, we're going to have a couple fringe ideas, but really the concept is wages. And I'm talking really about, I want to address some of the things that I don't hear being talked about, and we're going to try and work it into some of the things that are being talked about. So, a couple little ideas to set us up. First is our personal beliefs. When I say our, I mean I kind of know where I stand. Take a moment and to address where you stand on the concept of meritocracy. Do you believe, for those who are not familiar with the word, it's pretty much merit-based. So you believe that people should get paid what they're worth, what they earn. Okay, and you can't separate those two ideas. You got to earn it, and then of course you should get what you earn. So I do believe that, or I believe that we should strive to get close to that and strive towards getting. It's a good way to approach things. It's never. I don't think it's going to be perfect, because you always have the subjective opinion, but I think it's a good destination. It's a good goal to strive towards. So if you believe in that, if you don't, comment below and maybe we can discuss. But if you do, that people should get paid what they're worth. Let's examine that a little bit. Okay, in the context still, the big topic here we're talking about is wages, what people should get paid, how they should get paid, and the systemic problems that I observe. So a little background, this is going to be extremely relevant, is wages for employees, particularly entrance level, have pretty much been stagnant since about 72. Okay, so you've seen a little bit of creep, but barely keeps up with inflation. And of course, the executives, that's not the case. We've seen a multitude of factors accelerating what executives get paid. So wages have been stagnant now for 40 years, okay? Over 40. So, all right, well, let's take a little bit more descriptive and complete look at the concept of a wage. Think about your workplace, and of course, I'm going to anchor it to where some of the things that I'm, plugged into. If you work hard, if you do your job well, should you get paid well? And I don't necessarily, should you get paid better than if you didn't do a good job? And I hope your answer is yes. Then ask yourself, is that what you see in your workplace? Or do you see, if you're, the guy next to you or the girl next to you is goofing off and doesn't work hard, how much did they get paid? Oh, they got paid the same as you. Okay, well, that's not a meritocracy, okay? So you got the system there, and this is important to understand, is now rewarding people to do the bare minimum. What is the bare minimum? The exact amount not to get fired. Okay, so the system is not functioning correctly. It is structured wrong and suboptimal, where you are now motivating incomplete and poor behavior in the sense of performance, okay? So let's look at this a little further. Once again, I challenge everyone to think of somebody in their current workplace. And it might just be a moment, because I often find myself like I'm reacting to a specific point in time, like so-and-so isn't doing anything right now. Here's a story I can tell about my recent observations. I go and I work out at a gym, and in my gym, oftentimes, whether it's the paper towels aren't refilled, that we have these little ammonia bottles to wipe down the machinery, which with COVID is even more important right now. Most of the time they're empty or, dying. And I literally have a picture on my phone. And I've thought, and I may do this at some point, but for my better sense of judgment, I've tried to be constructive. But I'm tempted to put this picture of, there's 3 people who work there, and they're up front, and all 3 of them are like leaning against the back wall behind the counter, and they're all on their phones. goofing off on their phones, right? And and I think about posting this to social media and going, we should raise the minimum wage. Now, all right, let's have an honest moment. They're not working. I don't know what they're like. If the owner came in, he's like, I need somebody behind the counter, but there's busy work you could be doing. You could be you could be filling up, you could be calling people who, there's work to be doing. You're just not doing it. And I do understand that sometimes, like a receptionist, you have to have somebody sitting in that chair, okay? But the absolute reality is, if you think your job is to goof off on Facebook, text your partners or kids, or I have an IT friend who, in his previous job, used to text me, I've watched everything on Netflix. I don't know what else there is to watch, because as he was waiting for these emergencies to happen at work, he was allowed to just watch stuff on Netflix. So he got paid to watch Netflix, okay? So let's frame up. I'm postulating that the system itself is not working for us. But it's important, because if we address just part of that, we're not actually changing the system, we're changing a part. So do you believe that the system is not working, that we are not getting paid on a merit-based concept, okay? I feel like I want to talk a little bit more about that. So imagine a workplace where if I make a widget, I get paid X amount of money for that widget, okay? If I make 10 widgets, I get 10 times that amount. First, it's clearly defined. I know exactly what I need to do to make X amount of dollars, okay? I think that's really valuable. If you were wanting to save up to go on a vacation, I need to grind. I need to get after it. I need to make a bunch of widgets so that I can make the amount of money. I need 10 widgets maybe a day to pay my bills, but I think I can get 12. And if I get 12, I'm going to have the surplus that I need to fund that vacation or whatever's important to you. Cool. So you see how you're empowering the person through that actualized relationship with potential earning to know exactly what they need to do. I think that's a very good thing. And that is not what we have. What we have is person A, person B, they go into work, doesn't matter how many widgets they make, they both got paid their hourly wage. There's a component, you can make an argument that at the end, first off, if the person is too low, they will eventually get fired and they will make no widgets. Okay, but I don't know if that's healthy or constructive for both the person nor the business. So then the person has to, they get thrown out into the job market and maybe on welfare, unemployment. That's not good. Okay, it's not good for them, and it's not good for the underlying social system, okay? Because that money came from somewhere. You and I's taxes, government spending and social, support programs, all, whatever. So within that construct, back to the merit, widgets, that's not what we have, okay? But in addition, there's also the company side. Now they have to go hire somebody. They have to interview somebody. They have to bring on somebody else, okay? And here's the most important part. We had that person A, person B, okay? Neither of them was being motivated to do their best, okay? They're, in fact, the system is motivating them to do the bare minimum. Once again, redefining the bare minimum is just enough not to get fired, okay? So in that scenario, maybe you could work hard. Maybe you want to work hard. Maybe you're a busybody. You're like, we all know that person who's just always, always like, like a bee, like a hummingbird, just zipping around, just always has to be working on stuff, doing stuff. Okay, and oftentimes we define them as having a good work ethic. That person could go to that job, make a bunch of widgets, okay, and get paid for what they actually did. Okay? My argument is that's a really smart way to do things. And that's clearly not how the system is set up now. Let's take a moment and understand an additional concept here. Why would the system be set up like this? If you have a business, okay, and the sole goal of at least the big businesses, the big business conglomerates, is to maximize shareholder profit. One very impactful way to do that is to lower your payroll expense. This is a big part of what's behind stagnant wages. So, if as a business you saved more money by using an hourly wage concept, or you saved more money by doing a merit-based production actualized concept, the choice you would choose is the one that saves you the most money. Because remember, your goal is to maximize shareholder profits. With that as your goal, you're going to pick the one that saves that you pay the least amount of payroll. So, for anyone out there who's thinking, an hourly wage, and by the way, there's also, I may do this in a separate talk, the same components can be applied to a salary. Okay, there's a little more consistency. The origin of salary has a good place. It's stuff that's hard to quantify. You can't count the amount of widgets because what you do isn't widgets. That was the origin of how a salary came to be. But there's plenty, but it's the same overall concept that we're talking about right now, is that the business chooses salary because salary, it's going to pay you less than if you had to pay you an hourly. And why does it choose hourly? Because it's going to pay you less than if it paid you for merit and what you actually accomplished, right? Does that make sense? If it does, understand what we're talking about has the system is not working. It is failing each and every one of us that works in this kind of structured environment with an hourly wage. Why is this really important to recognize right now? So you see these talks about raise the minimum wage. I'm going to suggest that without correlation between what you're being paid and what you're actually accomplishing, minimum wage is almost irrelevant. Raising the minimum wage is not the fix. Okay, paying people for what they're doing is the fix. So that those people, 3 people at the gym, are not getting paid to play on their cell phones, but they actually are. So how can you make an argument to pay that person more money? They're not doing any work. Okay? If they would do a little bit of work, maybe I would be in a better position to pay them more. Now, once again, we can't ignore the corporate motivation, which should also be addressed, and we'll talk about that in another video. When I have that one up, I will link it down below in the details. So you have a corporate structure. By the way, small businesses tend to follow that corporate structure eventually. So the corporations, they hire more people than small, but not as an aggregate, but the corporate world, they create some practices, and they're like the trendsetters, where they figure out new efficient ways, and then over time the small businesses catch up because they were still smart and they saved money, or maybe got more competitive. So even though there's definitely some differences in a small business, eventually, all they do, if Walmart comes up with a better way to do like a point of sale system, 10 years later, if a small business can afford to do that, they're going to do it too, because they're going to get all the benefits of what Walmart discovered. Okay? So there's all this pressure to not pay people based off merit, and it's designed that way on purpose so that you don't have to pay people more money. You don't have to pay them what they actually did. By the way, this is relevant in both columns. If you did a lot of work, you're not paid what you're worth. Okay? If you did a little bit of work, maybe in theory you got paid closer to what you were worth, but the whole system itself was chosen because it didn't have to pay you what you were worth. That's why they chose the hourly wage. Okay? So raising the hourly wage is not actually going to solve the right problem. The system is still going to be broken, and what you're going to see in a short amount of time is that cost. I'm going to do a deeper dive, a second video that's going to go into some of the specific numbers. But for now, let's just talk concepts. As cost of payroll would go up, you're going to see the same thing. You're going to see amount of people employed go down, because I don't have I didn't magically make more money yet. Okay, that'd be the second part of what I do. So I have this pocket of money, and payroll now needs to take up more of it. So I have 2 things I can do. I can make more money. How do I do that? I raise my prices. So all that did was, it was really just, it's literally the definition of inflation. All I've done is raise my prices to accommodate my pay, and it almost stays in equilibrium. And I'm not saying, I do totally agree that people should be paid more money, but I do not feel that minimum wage is a good way to address that. The second component that needs to be understood with the minimum wage argument is you're going to lay people off and get rid of people. If the, because remember, your money is fixed. You can raise prices and you can reduce payroll expense to make up that difference of missing money. Okay, so that's not helpful to the society as a whole. It just raises the unemployment rate. Actually, a third component, what you're seeing now, is you find creative solutions around it. You find ways to bring people on as like part-time employees, where maybe you do pay them that $15 an hour, but they don't get benefits because they're only ever going to work, whatever that state minimum is, 36 hours or 24 hours, whatever your state's guidelines are, whatever they have to do to beat this system. And then of course an extension of that, which is really relevant right now, is things like the Uber and Lyft and Grubhub, where you're a 1099 contractor, and sure, why? Because I don't want to. Because if I have to pay $15 an hour, I can't afford it. But instead, I'll do these subcontractor things, and I do think there's a place. I'm not trying to take away the value that some of those services offer, but they're also very exploitative. Okay, let's tie it back to where I was going with this. So you look to the person to the left. Think about your workplace. If you came into work and regardless of what you got accomplished that day, you're going to have a good day at work. So your boss yells at you when you don't get enough things accomplished, You can also make an argument that you don't do it the right way. So if you remove that pressure, if I only had to pay you for the things you did the right way, first off, the system is now motivating the correct behavior as opposed to motivating the incorrect behavior. That's good. Then the second component is I don't ever have to be mean to you as a boss. If Randy did 2 widgets and Brian did 12 widgets, I had 14 widgets. And maybe there's, I'm probably oversimplifying a little bit. Maybe you have a goal, so that you can have some production things defined, as far as pace and how long does it take you to accomplish things. But the whole key here is Randy wouldn't do 2 widgets if he got motivated the right way to do 10. He'd try for 10, and maybe he didn't get to 10, Some other concepts that we should take a moment and think about is Randy's, like, let's say Brian has a better way to do it. Let's invert it because I like to give Randy some praise. Let's say Randy's has a way to do 14 widgets a day. Well, now I'm going to pay attention to what Randy's doing, and I'm going to go, oh man, I see. He does the box and this part of the widget all at the same time, and it saves him, 5%. He gets a 5%, gain of efficiency. That's great. I'm going to do it his way. So now you're motivating people to do it, to think about what they're doing and you're motivating that innovation of efficiency and driving it, okay? And that's all good. It's all really good. Remember, I also said that you have that expectation of, if I know I can do 14 widgets, I have an expectation of what I'm getting paid. You technically still have that now with the minimum wage, or even just hourly wage, but the reality is you don't have any control over it. You don't have any control. I can just, do 5 more, items and get paid more money. No. So you're motivated. So you're not having that innovation. You're not motivating that innovation. You're motivating the opposite. You're motivating people to do the bare minimum, which is by definition the opposite of what you want. Okay? Here's some other ideas to think about. Let's say you got paid on those, we're still going to use our widget analogy. You got paid on widgets. Well, let's say in a normal 10-hour day, 8-hour day, we'll use 8, I did those 10 widgets. Now tomorrow I have a doctor's appointment. So I go in and for 6 hours, I crank it, man. I use all the best. I'm motivated. I don't take any bathroom breaks. I don't stop for coffee. Maybe a little bit of coffee on the way in before I got there. Not while I was there. Okay, and I still got my 10 widgets done. Now I leave and I go to my doctor's appointment and I'm happy. And guess what? I didn't lose any money. I got paid the same amount because I got paid for the actual amount of widgets made. Well, that's fantastic. And what does that say for a bigger picture? The bigger picture is it now integrates that flexibility because you're getting paid for what you're actually doing, which hopefully we all agreed was really intelligent. That made a lot of sense. You shouldn't pay people not to do things. You should pay people to do things. So wow, they got paid for what they actually did, which allows them complete customization, still a component of business planning and goals, but from the individual side, you have now complete flexibility. Okay? If you need to work 2 hours, you work 2 hours. And that's amazing. That's all, when we really think about it, these are all things that we all dream about and want. We want to get paid for the work we do. We want to get recognized for the work we do. Okay, right? When I'm at work and I see the person to the left of me not doing work, I'm like, oh my God, why are they getting paid? I'm probably a little bit more aggressive than most in that column. When I see people coming up with reasons just to get to the end of their day, what if you got to go home as soon as you finished your work? Okay? Like, that's an amazing way. I think about this daily. Okay? If I could get my work done in 6 hours, why did you keep me here for 10? That's just dumb. It's dumb. Okay? It doesn't help the business, and it doesn't help me, and it doesn't help my morale and my mentals at all. I'm just here. Now I'm finding 4 hours of how to kill and waste time. It's not good. It's not healthy. It's not proactive. Okay. So now we're talking about paying people for what they actually do. Okay? And that's not what our current system is, and we need to try and address that. Let me talk about a simple concept that I think would, at least on the surface, fix a lot of it. Because at the end of the day, you need an actual executable solution. So once again, in that same early 70s, happened a lot in the early 80s too, we slid from what they used to call stakeholder capitalism and corporate philosophy to stockholder. So a stakeholder was the people who owned the company, the community it was tied to, stake. People had a stake in the company's progress and prosperity. And then we've slid to this, optimized profit for stockholders, people who own stock. And I think that is extremely harmful. So now you have this company that, doing well is defined improperly, in my opinion, because it only focuses on one value, maximizing profit. And the reality is that is not how a healthy human outlook is monitored. I mean, money is important, wealth is important, but there's a whole lot of other virtues that are more important, or at least equally important. So it doesn't address any of those other virtues. But in addition to that, the people doing the work are not tied to the success at all. Once again, how does this motivate correct behavior? It does not. You are motivating them to do the bare minimum. That is all you are motivating. Well, what if you had a minimum amount of stock that had to be given to the people doing the work, to your employees? So 40% of your company, if you want a number, 40% of your company has to be owned internally through stocks, because that's the system. Like, it's just a little tweak to the current system, whereas 40% of your stock has to be owned by the people doing the work. That's an arbitrary number, so I'm just throwing it out. Maybe 60%, maybe 30% is a better number. Maybe each one's different, depending on the industry and the setup of the business. But you see how if you tie the actual success of the business to the people doing the work, they are now being rewarded for the work they do in some capacity, and that is smart. They are motivated. Even if you didn't change the minimum wage, okay? Say I'm getting exploited in those trenches, I should be getting paid way more. I'm not, but our company grows to twice its size in 2 years. Well, all my stock shares doubled, so I still got paid more money, or more value anyway, in the form of those stock values going up because of my hard work. Now I'm motivated to hold my team accountable and to drive my motivate. You create this complete positive feedback loop where people are now motivated to do the right things. All right, so let me summarize. The hourly wage is dumb. It is stupid. You want to pay people for what they do. Not, I mean, the time they give you is important, but it locks this into this very destructive way of thinking about our workflow and our workforce, you know? And this isn't new. You know, if you think about like sales, okay, most sales positions, you know, anything that has a commission component is rewarding you to do the work. And I don't know. So when you think about these entrance level minimum wage jobs, and I challenge you, you know, go through, look at that person, you know, and there's always going to be outliers, but most of them are just sitting around figuring out ways not to do work. And the argument shouldn't be to pay them more money to do no work. That's ridiculous. What we want to do is find ways to make more work available so that people are more in charge of how much money they can earn. Okay? How much money they can earn. That's a better problem, I think, to solve. And creating pathways where people could control that more and have more freedom to control it. And then on the back end of that is, yes, time is a relevant topic. It's our most important asset. But we shouldn't just lock people. They can get the job done in 6 hours, but we just lock them there for 8.5. Why? Oh, because we just want to make 2.5 hours of their life less valuable? What could they have done with that 2.5 hours? Like both sides of that equation are just completely failing us. And if we want to ask ourselves why, a reminder and a review of that, it's all because the corporations want to pay you the least amount possible, which is an hourly way. Okay? So what you should be getting paid $30 per widget, and let's say you could do one widget an hour. But because they don't want to pay you $30 a widget, why? Because they would pay you $30 an hour, effectively, an equitable wage. So instead, you get paid $10 an hour, but now you're demotivated. So instead of doing one widget, you only do a half a widget. So the company didn't make out. They have less widgets. They technically saved money though, because instead of paying you half would be $15 an hour, they paid you $10. And then of course they sold you this brand of, well, you knew what you were going to get paid, and every 2 weeks you had a dependable paycheck. Dude, the whole system's garbage. So let's see if we can rethink this. You know, comment below whether you agree with some of what I'm talking about. I'm going to do a second one, which is going to be a deep dive into the numbers, where I'm going to reference some of the trends in wages. I'll probably take a little bit of time to discuss the histories of how we got to the hourly wage concept, how we got to a salary, you know, the pros and cons and necessity of some of those items. Because I think the historical background is relevant. You know, what you kind of need to understand, or I suggest you should understand, is with this view of maximizing profit, every business has maximum pressure pretty much to take the current system and exploit as much of it as possible. Whether it's taxes, how do we look at the current tax law and how do we exploit it down so we pay zero taxes? Okay? Exploit the loopholes. It's the same thing in wages. Okay, how do we pay the minimum? Okay, in theory for the most, but the most is per unit. You know, if you use that example, instead of paying you $30 per widget, we can now pay you, you know, half of that would be 15. Instead, I paid you 10. So they made out. All the pressure is how to optimize, and the pressure itself is okay. It's actually good. You just need to look at that pressure and guide it in the constructive ways that are going to strengthen your system, thereby strengthening your society. Okay, whether it be a small local, you know, society, or you know, the nation as a whole. So you got to align those goals and principles. All right. So let's see if we can at least rethink the minimum wage and address the right issue, which is people should get paid for what they're doing. And if people did that, the companies would have a lot more money. Of course, I mean, employees in theory would be working harder, but that's a good thing. Like you would have a good work ethic, and maybe if you were working harder, you could work less. That would be good, right? Then you could use that time on something else. Or if the opportunity was there, you could make more money. So hopefully I summarized it pretty good. There was a lot of big topics there, but stay tuned. Like I said, I'm going to do a deep dive on the numbers, and we got a couple more things I'm going to be talking about here in the next couple of weeks. Thanks for watching. Please hit the like and subscribe, and follow me on our Patreons, and also on my second collaborative, Rolling Crits. All right, let's do this.